Hi, this is Patrick Conroy, and welcome to Chapter 5, American Legal Heritage and Constitutional Law. I've broken down this presentation really into two parts. First part will be American Legal Heritage, and the second part will be Constitutional Law. We're really getting into the real good stuff now. First few chapters, we just talked about being a paralegal. Now we're going to start talking about the law. Wording objectives. Define law and describe the functions of the law. Why do we have them? Explain the fairness and flexibility of the law. List the schools of jurisprudential thought. Little trouble. Provide a basic history of American law. List and describe the sources of law in the United States. Explain the doctrine of separation of powers and describe the checks and balances built into the U.S. Constitution. Describe the supremacy clause of the United States Constitution and the preemption doctrine. Describe the commerce clause of the United States Constitution. And describe freedom of speech and other protections guaranteed by the Bill of Rights. Describe the equal protection clause and the tests used to determine whether it has been violated. So why do we have law? What is there? Black's Law Dictionary, and Black's Law is like, we talk about with doctors like Gray's Anatomy being the foundation of all the books. Black's Law is kind of the foundation of English law terms. It's a body of rules of action or conduct prescribed by the control of authority and having a binding legal force. That's what a law is. And the law consists of rules that regulate the conduct of individuals, businesses, and other organizations. It protects persons and their property from unwanted interferences. Now, I know it's very easy to jump and think about, criminal law. If you hear the word law, you think about criminal law, and the police is much, much broader. It has to do with ownership rights, contracts, families, real estate, personal injury, all of these different areas of the law. So don't just think of criminal law. Once you think beyond that, to the many, many aspects of the law, you think about what the law is and what it does. And my job is to protects persons and their properties from unwanted interferences from other people. Fairness and flexibility of the law. The legal system isn't perfect. We all know that. Juries and judges can make mistakes, but the American legal system is one of the most comprehensive, fair, and democratic systems of law. It's not perfect, but it's really one of the best out there. Flexibility in the legal system can lead to some uncertainty in case results. Sometimes where the judge rules seems fair, but it may not be the way that other judges have ruled in the past. Constant adaptation to new legal issues is constantly necessary. Society changes, technology changes, our expectations change. So schools of jurisprudential thought. For this, think in terms of what is going through a lawmaker's mind when they're making a law. What is their personal philosophy? And also, it shapes how a judge might interpret a law. And the different sorts of philosophies or jurisprudential thought. First is natural law, which is largely based on morality and ethics. And a lot of that is, what the founding fathers sort of had in mind with the law, and that was their school of thought, that things were more evident. You just look at nature and what seemed fair and reasonable based on what you can see. Historical school, we've had some more time, and now it's sort of like the law of what changes in the norms of society. And the way that where the minorities and women were treated in the past. As society changed and as those go on, the law changed to reflect the new norms of society. The analytical skill. Decisions should apply principles of logic to the facts of the case. You know, oh, by the way, you can have a mixture of these skills of thought. Sociological skill, this was fairly new, and laws that exceed and advance sociological goals and should shape social behavior. So, this might come into place for a legislator who thinks that as a society, we should be doing more to conserve energy. So we might pass a law to raise taxes on natural fuel, so that people will use less of it. So that's sort of sociological skill. Command skill. Law is a set of rules developed by the ruling class which do not reflect society's morality. You know, sometimes in our political system, the truth is the political campaign that raises the most money is most likely to win. And the way they get that money for their campaign is from donors. And they're more likely to have their ears available to those who give them most money. So those will be the ruling class. And so it says that they have a disproportionate share in the shaping of our laws because of that. Critical legal studies school. Legal disputes should be solved by applying arbitrary rules based on fairness. This can be very, very tricky and slippery slope, because what one person thinks is fair might not be what someone else thinks is fair. And if you're using arbitrary rules, you have nothing concrete to pin it on. To say this is why, this is what's fair. Law and economics school. This is that you will create a law which will free market principles in a cost-benefit analysis. In other theories, you can use as a foundation for legislation and determine company litigation. For instance, if you pass this law, then this will mean that automakers have to spend this much more money on cars, and that will pass on to the consumer. And really, is the benefit worth that price? Now, American law sort of came over with English settlements. And the way that the English system set up was there's names what was called English common law. And picture most people living in small villages, small towns, no real police force or court system. And so what would happen, most people couldn't read. So the judges sort of traveled around, would appear like every few months and then rule on the cases that come up with them. The English common law was developed by judges who issued written opinions, which became precedent for future cases. So this is a way of making the law more predictable. So Bob sells John a horse. The next day the horse dies. John wants his money back. Bob says no. What the judge decides, in this case, will be applied to the next time someone sells a horse and it dies the next day. The law courts then from monetary damages to emphasize the legal procedure. Chancery or equity courts were a court of review, sort of like an appeals court. And the results were better shaped to fit each individual situation. And then there were merchant courts. They're based on common trade practices. So you get like the guilds who would decide what was usual in cases involving blacksmiths. adoption of the English common law in America. All states but Louisiana base their legal system on English common law. Yeah, we're the different one. We sort of settled by different people. But they're not as different as a lot of people outside of the Louisiana seem to be. You know, I've studied both and really trying to get to the same place with different places. Besides common law, there was the civil law system. And this originated in Rome and focuses on civil code and statutes as a source of law. So instead of being the written opinion of the judge that came before, it sets what the law is. There's actually a book with all statutes as the sources of law. And the civil code and the statutes span and interpreted are the sole sources of the law. You see, Louisiana, you know, the system from Rome was passed to many other countries in Europe, Spain, France, Italy. We adopted that because we're settled by the French and Spanish. Now, since we're part of the United States, we sort of have a mixed system as well. But we still have the civil law, which is the civil code, which means that the laws are passed by the legislature or a constitutional convention, and they're in a book. And they are what you have to look at whenever you look at the case. They usually often take into account past interpretations of the code, but the code is what they're supposed to be looking at first and foremost. The idea is, if something in the code is unfair, then it should be the legislature that fixes it. Each state has a constitution as well as the federal constitution. And these are usually broadly enumerated principles that adapt to the changing social, technological, and economic conditions against the supreme law. The state constitutions usually go into much more depth than the federal constitution, and they tend to be amended much more. Treaties govern relationships between nations and make it the process of treaty. Codified laws or written laws created by the legislature and are codified in ordinance. So these codified laws can be passed by Congress, or they can be passed by the state legislature, or the parish or city government. Administrative laws are created by administrative agencies that are created notice and common when members of the public negotiate. So this would be like regulations passed by the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, FASTA, those which executive orders are issued by the executive branch of the government. So that's the president and the agency. Really, the president is the one who issue executive orders that have the power of the law. And there's certain, they can't just do anything that would be in opposition to a law. District decision. Our opinions issued by a judge that explain the legal reasoning used to decide against our opinion. You know, we've been doing research as a paralegal. These opinions are very important because you not only figure out what, you know, how a judge rules in an early case, you are in precedent, or and you know all the facts and the reasoning, because your facts might be a little bit different. So you can make that reasoning to say, hey, yes, the judge ruled this way back then, but our case is a little bit different. You know, the same reasoning would be used in this situation. Now, we have all seen it, all levels of government, federal, state, parish, city. All of these are passing laws. But here's how the priority of the law is determined. The US Constitution is considered the law of the land. So if something goes against the Constitution, it's thrown. The next are treaties. Those are usually between governments, and those have precedent over just the laws passed by the Congress. Then regulations, then cases, then administrative rules. So in the case where the state law, it contradicts the federal law, it conflicts it in some way. The federal laws from the state. And then there's a stacking of storage assessments, standbys to the decision. These were probably judges who ruled consistently to follow legal precedent, case decisions established by cases for similar legal issues and patterns. So this is why you need to know the precedent and the reasoning, because you may want this judge to follow the same legal reasoning as before, or you need to differentiate. So this will wraps up part one. Most of our criteria in a minute, and we focus on Constitution.